Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hanging Out on Monday night. We've got a cast of characters here, and we're going to talk about some stuff. I've been thinking about something today. I thought it'd be a fun topic just to throw out there. I was thinking about artists or songs or albums that changed everything. Like after it happened, nothing was the same after that. You feel where I'm coming from on that?
I do.
Like it happened and it changed music forever. It changed our lives forever. I thought it'd be fun for everybody to kind of think about something they can remember or that they know happened and how it impacted music. I think I want to pick on Jay first. I don't know why I do, but I do. But by the way, because I'm going to Jay first, the show's probably going to be an hour and a half long. But we want everybody to have a turn. So go ahead, Jay.
Oh, we love you.
Well, I was bartending at a Fuddruckers in Boston, and one of the waiters who was going to Boston College, who worked for us part-time, said, "Hey, man, you got to check this out. I interviewed this band last night. Their album came out yesterday, and I have a cassette here. It's called Nirvana, Nevermind." And I just remember listening to it going, oh, this has got some Black Sabbath-y thing, but it sounds kind of punk. And it honestly reminded me of a couple years earlier or a year earlier when I first heard like Pearl Jam's 10 and STP, I think it's Crush. Their first Core, thank you. Their first album. But those are the ones that probably, for what I saw about music around me, there were albums like Kiss Alive 2 that changed my telepathy or my, pathway. But as far as things I heard that I went, oh, this is really going to be different.
I was thinking about Nirvana today. I was thinking about bands like Pearl Jam. And it's no secret, they're not my favorite acts. But I was thinking about how they were different than what was going on at the time and what's been going on ever since. And that is, the singers sounded like men singing. They didn't sound like little kids. It seems like most music now, every lead vocalist sounds like a 14-year-old boy, where these guys sounded like mature men. And that was just a little nuance that I don't know if everybody caught.
And it's funny you say that. I was driving with Michelle the other day. We were listening to Sirius to, I think it's channel 45, maybe. And it's kind of their big hair metal channel. And she made a really interesting comment. She goes, wow, I forgot guys sang really high back in the 80s because it's a lot of the 80s metal. And they did. They sang with a really high voice that you couldn't sing.
Mm-hmm.
And you heard Nirvana and you're like, oh, I could scream like that. You know, the approach was just genuine, it seemed.
Oh, it was DIY for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
The only other one around that time period would have been like Epic by Faith No More.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, this is different, but it's different in a way of like, they're taking other stuff and going this way.
When I think about original punk, I think about very DIY, we don't know how to play our instruments, and we wrote a song in 5 minutes and threw it together. I don't think about that when I think about Nirvana. I think about guys who can play and wrote really good songs, but did it in a DIY style.
Right.
Does that make sense to you?
It totally does, because one of the bands that influenced them that's from your neck of the woods that I really liked was that I found late was a band called Husker Du.
Yeah.
And I just remember when I found them, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. It's like fast punk, but it's definitely a 3-piece. Like they didn't make enough noise to be a full band. It was like you just heard drums. But Nirvana was a 3-piece. but I think their ability to play and write made it sound a little fuller. Sort of the way ZZ Top sounds really full.
Yeah, you're right.
And they're a three-piece. The Police sound really full.
Genesis.
Rush, Genesis. There are bands that can pull it off, but I think they tend to be a little few and far between. Yeah, no, Rush, Police,
Sure.
Nirvana, ZZ Top. Those are the ones that really come to mind as far as bands that had that ability. But I think you're right. I think it's a good observation that it was their ability to write.
Yeah, the songs are very well written. I really enjoy the Nevermind album. I think it's chock full of really interesting, catchy tracks.
Well, it's funny because you listen to In Utero and it sounds like a growth album from Nevermind.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't.
That's what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but a lot of bands, they try to get out of this sophomore slump by just coming up with something really hooky.
Right.
I don't think that Nirvana did that as much. And there are tracks like Pennyroyal Tea where you're like, okay, this is just a dude and a guitar, but gosh, his choices on this are amazing. But that was probably one of the few times I can think of where I saw the music around me being affected dramatically.
Yeah, it affected everything. It was in retail at the time and working at a store at the mall with Cheryl, who I've talked about, who's still a really good friend of mine, Stevie's godmother. And all of a sudden we couldn't sell clothes anymore because everybody just wanted to go buy flannel at the tractor store. It's like they wanted ripped up jeans. They didn't want, that stuff anymore. Fashion changed.
Pillows and oak tree.
Everything changed.
Yeah.
It was accessible,
Chess King and the colors that match and white shoes kind of.
No, but you're right though. It changed everything. And that's a really good example of what I'm talking about for their topic tonight. Just something that happened. And then after that, nothing was the same.
But don't you think you can't do it again because of the internet? Like, we also didn't have the internet. So if something was big, and word of mouth is so much more impactful to me than the internet, because I get 100 news feeds a day that tell me breaking news, weather changes dramatically. Like, who cares?
Yeah, that's another conversation. But I've thought about that before too, where it's kind of like, well, on the internet,
I don't think you've got
a lot
of the world on fire anymore.
You've got a lot of naysayers on the internet. So before anything can become interesting, you got a lot of people crapping all over it.
Exactly.
So it's just a different world now. But regardless,
well, but it's not even a negative about that. It's just that the organic growth of a movement, I think, is more genuine and
you're right,
deeply rooted. Yeah. When it's allowed to actually root itself in society versus a flash in the pan hit online of here's the next big thing.
Right. No, agreed.
Yeah.
Who would like to go next?
I'll go. Oh, Damon, go ahead.
You guys want to arm wrestle for this shit?
No, Damon would win anyway.
Nah, not today. So a song or something that changed the way we look at things.
Everything.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to pick out a group from Germany. 4 guys set the world on fire, experimenting with electronic music.
Is fire the name?
The group is called Kraftwerk.
Mm-hmm.
But the song specifically is Autobahn, 1974. If you don't know this track, look it up.
Yeah.
It's actually, they're really talking about the freeway in Germany.
Right. And one of Hitler's great contributions to our society. Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Der Kommissar.
No.
That's about 20. That's about 15 years earlier.
Well, it's about 10 years later. Yeah,
about 10 years later. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, the song is Autobahn, and if you actually listen to Autobahn, and then fast forward about 9 years, listen to Planet Rock. Arthur Baker, the producer of Planet Rock, got a big influence from Kraftwerk, and Planet Rock has a lot of Kraftwerk influences throughout the whole track. So,
wasn't it? I'm thinking. Am I thinking right here? Didn't LA Dream Team gank a lot of that stuff too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a whole another rabbit hole we can go down on how many groups.
Yeah, that's another
right.
Inspired from Kraftwerk.
It's like who sampled Chic. It's kind of the same thing.
I mean, basically,
the question is who did it.
It's like if you look at the Detroit techno scene. I mean, basically, the early electro pop stuff that was coming out of Detroit all pays tribute to Kraftwerk.
Yeah, electronic music. They weren't the first, but they were.
Yeah. So Kraftwerk
did it right.
Long story short, Kraftwerk was so big in, I want to say 97 at the electronic music fest called Love Parade in Germany. When Kraftwerk went on, Detroit had their own tent at that festival. When Kraftwerk was getting ready to go on, Detroit shut their whole tent down and went over to watch Kraftwerk. Because they have that much love for Kraftwerk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so my song today is Kraftwerk Autobahn.
Nice. Well played. So you got to follow this up, guys. This is the bummer. I mean, so with that in mind,
I mean, don't get me wrong. Jay did a great job with his.
Jay did a great job. He made it was a great pick. It's exactly what I want to talk about tonight.
Yeah,
I thought it would be fun.
I had to come with something, also that was a really good pick.
And it was a great pick. Eric, what do you got? Because you were so excited about going. And I can see Kevin's getting nervous, but it's okay. He's still thinking. He'll get something.
You know why? There's a million.
My high school dance, Benny Goodman's first album. Really?
Jay, don't you have a pioneer thing to go to? There are so many avenues you can take with this question. I mean,
there are. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to give it up to everybody else. So I'm going to go a different route. And it's still musical. Karaoke.
All right.
When it first started, it was 71 in China. Seriously. You imagine that?
Was it China? I thought it was Japan. It was China, huh?
It was China. And it translates as empty orchestra. That's what that translates, karaoke. And then it hit U.S. in 82. And everybody then thought, oh, this is just a phase. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. Guess what? It changed the world because it's still just as popular now as it was in 82. And I hope to God I didn't steal Matthew's answer. But I mean, because there are I can name off 10 different things, but I wanted to probably name off something that nobody else would name.
No, it's good, man.
Yeah. And it's just karaoke. And I do like maybe 3-4 nights a week, and the rest is weddings and whatever.
Yeah.
I DJ just as much as you guys, not as much as Jay, though.
Nobody DJs as much as Jay.
No. And I'm disappointed about that.
I was waiting for like Jimmy and the Four Cavemen. I remember.
All right. Well, so see, I did go through a different avenue.
You did it, and well played.
Yeah, no, totally.
But that's what I got. But I'd love to hear everybody else's, because I know there's different genres that come out and I'm like, what is this? And it's stuck. So who's next?
Yeah, we got people in the room. Some people are like chomping at the bit. They're ready to go. Some people are still processing it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So who's comfortable with going next?
I'm good.
John, I know you're good. I know you got this.
I'm good.
You may take mine, but that's okay.
I'll try not to, because I kind of thought about what everyone else was going to go, and I didn't want to take the long hanging fruit out of the room, because people may want those. But I'm going to piggyback off Jay a little bit. And before the Nirvana movement, the last big change in rock, which got rid of all the long-haired country boys and flowered shirts, suddenly a sharp-dressed group showed up in 1978 and made a different sound of rock and roll, and not everything sounded like Skynyrd anymore, and that was the Cars.
Ooh, you did take mine.
Debut album.
You did take mine.
I thought I was
going to go Cars. Yeah, but please do. Let's talk.
Okay, because what came before was nothing like what the Cars presented, and their debut album pretty much plays like a greatest hits record now.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Radio staples, 617 Love. Of course, we love Boston here. But I think opened the floodgates for a lot of the new wave stuff that came later. I mean, think immediately after, like the Knack showed up in suits and ties, and they had a hit single in '79. I think what the Cars brought to the table was musicianship, like kind of cutting edge with the sound, because nothing really had that influence. Rick, I think, was a Philly guy, right? And Ben Orr They weren't Boston originally, but they all kind of emigrated here.
Right.
And once they launched it changed the sound of rock radio. And that was kind of the last movement pre-Nirvana, because then what the Cars built and what became 80s rock suddenly had that pop factor to it. And
I think you're right.
Wasn't just going to some festival and sitting in the dirt and watching, Molly Hatchet or something. It's like they added a new element to rock that wasn't there before. It was just precision and a certain sound. And I think what they brought in, and that was 1978 through probably 81, 82, they had a pretty decent run, 5 or 6 records. But they kept evolving too. And maybe they built off, like what Damon had said, the sounds of Kraftwerk, kind of that
I think they did.
electronic.
Yeah.
Came in, and maybe that's how we got some of the bands that I won't name in case any of you guys are on that road. But that'd be my pick. It's like, because I noticed even as a kid,
right. Yeah.
that's what I heard it on the radio, and all of a sudden everything changed. It was just like someone flipped the switch, and all the bands that came out started sounding like that.
The Cars were my inspiration for the show tonight. And
Really?
Yes, the reason I was thinking about it was because I was listening to the song "Best Friend's Girlfriend." Like really listening to it. It's like, this could have been a Chuck Berry song. The way it's structured, it could have been something that Chuck Berry did. And the guitar riffs in there.
I was going to say the guitar, right? Yeah.
But then it's got that, not only does it have that Kraftwerk element to it, where they added keyboards, but it's got this punk sensibility to it with the vocals, where I know they're singing in key, but it sounds flat to me. I don't know why it does, but I like that about it. It's kind of like the Human League did the same thing later on. They were kind of doing the same sort of thing. It became this movement. It was almost like a Joy Division thing that Ben Orr and Rick Ocasek did with their vocals, and just brilliant keyboards.
My Best Friend's Girlfriend and Let the Good Times Roll always sounded alike to me.
Well, Let the Good Times Roll.
Right.
Let the Good Times Roll is an interesting one, in my opinion, because when you see the title of it, you're thinking the Chuck Berry song.
Yes, absolutely. Right away. Yes.
And then you hear it, you're like, oh, no, I've never heard anything like this before.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember hearing that song for the first time. I was probably 7 years old. And I remember thinking to myself, nothing's ever going to be the same again. And it wasn't. It wasn't. I remember the guy who brought it over to the house. His name was Chris Rimlinger. I still talk to Chris once in a while. He was dating my sister, who's a friend of my brother's. Good guy. He lives in Colorado now. But yeah, he would bring things over. He was really into music, and he was able to buy these things. Our family didn't quite have that kind of dough, but he did. And he'd bring them over and share them. And yeah, staring at that album cover and trying to figure out which guy was singing and what guy was,
Right.
and what the girl on the front cover had to do with anything.
Candy. Yeah. And lyrically, I mean, that changed rock too, because they weren't just singing about partying and, letting loose and weekends with women. Like they had an intelligence to the lyricism, and the stuff that they wrote was just perfect for the day and age. It's exactly what kicked the door open to the 80s for pop radio. So
yeah, I agree 100%.
1,000% with you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, who's feeling good about going next?
I'll go.
Go, Matt. What do you got?
So call it irony or call it coincidence or whatever, but I'm going to piggyback on Jay as well. For about the last couple hours before we came on, I was actually listening to Nirvana and Big Head Todd and the Monsters and Stone Temple Pilots and the Wallflowers, all that kind of stuff. And then you guys remember a group called Material Issue?
I do not.
That was they were kind of a punk thing. I don't remember where they're out of, but look them up. They're pretty good too. Kind of low key punk, but once I heard them, I'm like, oh, this is catchy stuff. But they didn't catch on as well as I thought they would. But yeah, I was just kind of piggybacking on Jay there as far as like, the grunge kind of thing. I don't know. It just popped into my head today. Just sitting here looking for something to listen to, and Nirvana came to mind, and Pearl Jam, and
Yeah.
Wallflowers, and all that stuff, whatever. So yeah, that whole
The movement.
era,
The 90s
yeah,
movement.
it's just
And he froze.
Surprised I haven't heard of them. I don't recognize the name of the band. But we have to play
I'll
these
have to
after
check it out
class.
later.
Gonna check it out.
yeah.
Sure.
We'll do that later on. Yep.
Okay, we got Ken, we got Buddy, and we got Kevin. Who's going next?
Oh, I'll go.
Okay, what do you got?
Journey,
Okay.
Steve Perry.
Yeah.
I think it's, I don't know, just the way he sing. That's, I don't know, the way he sings it.
Yeah, he sings. He's got a unique voice, and I don't think that anybody's done what he's done, except the Filipino guy who replaced him to tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost irreplaceable. Almost.
Well, that's arena rock, and God, who else was doing that? Kiss was doing it.
Dix.
Styx was doing it. Absolutely.
Wagon a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. REO Speedwagon.
Yeah.
Who was the first to do it though? Was it Kiss?
Well, is it arena or corporate? Because all the bands we've just said have also ended up in the corporate rock.
Uh-huh.
They're very safe, no swearing, very middle of the road. Like,
Right.
it's a good time. It's a party. I think Kiss always wanted to be more dangerous than that. But I think as far as playing they put on the big show, but they admittedly stole it from Alice.
Yeah.
But I don't think back in those days, I don't know that Alice was playing arenas.
No.
No, he wasn't.
No.
I think Kiss kind of broke that mold.
Yeah.
And then you had our arena, the Boston Garden, and you had Bad Company and Ted Nugent and Styx and Journey and Aerosmith, and you had the rock segments that were consistently going there.
I apologize. Thundershower was here tonight and lost power, and I'm back on. I'm sorry.
You better
Welcome
be
back.
sorry. You better be.
I am sorry. Yes.
I'm going to pick on Kevin.
Bringing my hands over here.
Kevin's chomping at the bit, man. What do you got, Kevin?
Well, I come up with three different things.
Okay.
One of them was going to be a genre, but it sort of died out. Started in the 70s and died at the end of the 70s. I thought about that one. But I'm going to go with the other one was a group from overseas. But I'm going to go with the King, Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It did a major change in what was popular. Made all the ladies swoon, so all the guys had to, swivel their hips and, do the same thing to make that sell that record. So I'm going with the King and all the music that he come out with there in the middle 50s forward. Also, all those movies didn't hurt.
No. Definitely an icon. I mean, in rock and roll. I mean, what was he the first guy to ever do it? No, but he was the most popular guy, the first guy who was really popular to take over the world to do it. Absolutely.
Great commercially.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Commercial success.
Yeah, playing the teenage heartthrob. All the young ladies got his poster up on their walls or whatever.
I mean, before that, what do you have? Frank Sinatra, right?
Very much.
Was there any? I mean,
Rat Pack.
Crooners. Yeah.
Well, that was later. I think they established that. But I mean, before Elvis and what was it, 55, 56 Elvis hit?
Well, I mean, Chuck Berry was kind of doing the same thing before.
Right. But Chuck Berry wasn't as popular as Elvis. Am I right or wrong?
I think Chuck Berry opened the door.
Yeah. Elvis took it to a whole other level, but Chuck Berry was he was on the verge.
Yeah. Chuck Berry wasn't the pinup kid. Elvis was the pinup kid.
Yeah.
But you had Jerry Lee Lewis, you had Little Richard, you had guys before Carl Perkins.
Bill Haley's the one that I really like.
That too.
And that whole thing.
Bill Haley was great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And his comments.
Yeah, Elvis, absolutely, 100%, no argument. Nobody can argue that.
He was good.
No,
but it wasn't just the music; it was the image,
right?
Which changed everything after that. You really had to have a face for it before you've heard. Well, I got a great face for radio. Who cares? And with music, it didn't matter too much. but Elvis, they really leaned into that, his look.
He had the package. Yeah, he had the whole
Well, that's
package.
it. Once you got to get on Ed Sullivan, you got to be more than just a song. Now you got to be a pretty face and a whole persona. You got to take.
Oh my God! Think about what MTV did for all that.
Yeah.
I mean, really turned it on its head. But yeah, good pick, buddy. You're up.
Uh-oh.
No one has said anything about a certain British band that started the British invasion, the Beatles. That right there opened the door up for a lot of bands, which you can go down a whole entire list of not just rock from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even stuff from today. Even Adele can go back to the Beatles, that they opened the door up for other than American music here popular on the radio. But because before the Beatles, they may have a song here and there that was like in Europe or somewhere, but it wasn't as mainstream as the Beatles brought it. And again, you're bringing European music to the United States, to that market. It's a whole different thing.
Oh yeah.
And the Beatles brought to it not just rock and roll, but later on, the more experimental rock and roll, they did a lot of things. The sound, the wall of sound, the engineering engineering at Abbey Road and stuff like that. They introduced the American market to a lot of things that were.
No, Phil's American, and he did wall of sound. That was his thing.
But it was still the Beatles that helped bring that, made it popular. He did it, but there are other bands who did it too. But because of the Beatles opening that door up, it really opened the floodgates of that.
Yeah.
And really introduced that more and more people. They could hear that and they're like, oh, that's the same thing the Beatles do. I got to have that, Yeah. So it's one of the things that it opened not just music, but engineering up to a wide audience for a bunch of stuff.
They were very influential, not only to individual musicians who saw them on Ed Sullivan and said, hey, I want to do that. There are so many musicians who can tell you that they knew what they wanted to do as soon as they saw the Beatles perform at Ed Sullivan. And what I always, felt like what Beatles brought to the table. And there's this whole thing where America does it, it goes over to Europe, and then it comes back different. It happened with techno. It happened with house music. And it happened with rock and roll with the Beatles. Where I think I give the Beatles the most credit, really, not initially, but eventually, I could give them the credit. I could give the Beach Boys the credit, but it's just writing prolific songs, interesting songs with interesting key changes and melodies and lyrics. I think before that, it was much more simple. She loves you. Yeah. Fine. Okay. Then later on, you start talking about Eleanor Rigby and it's different. They're talking about some pretty interesting things and writing about something other than just the formula.
Well, you look at the Beatles themselves, the group themselves. You look at Paul and John, both those guys right there, just are powerhouses in writing and doing music. And again, everyone there on the whole entire band, all four of them are just very, very talented people. When you get that kind of nucleus between the four of them, you have something. Yeah, and even when they went on their own and they played on their own, they had their own music, their own albums and stuff. They were just as successful as they were in a group, and they carried that name with them. Even though it was, hey, you know what, it's Sir Paul, or it's John, or it's Ringo, or it's it's one of the things that they still were the Beatles. When you still saw them, you still associated them with the Beatles.
I'm thinking where everything changed, and I was going to go a couple different routes. I was going to go Cars. John took that. There's another route I was considering going, but I don't feel like I can speak a lot on it because I don't know enough about it to speak on it. But the one that I think I can probably speak on is Georgia Moroder.
Ooh.
And Donna Summer with I Feel Love, that particular track. And here's why it changed everything. Damon mentioned Kraftwerk. Electronic music, cool stuff. Now, what we haven't talked a lot about tonight is R&B, because there was a lot of really good R&B at the time. Georgia was the first guy to take R&B and electronic music and make it dance music, electronic dance music. He's the father of EDM. and nothing was the same after that. Everything changed. It had a 4/4 beat, and you can't say that I Feel Love is the first disco track. There are really cool tracks that came before that are pretty good. But what you can say is when it comes to electronic dance music, that was it. That was ground zero. That was patient one of EDM right there.
I agree with you on that because Autobahn didn't have a 4/4 beat. It was just
once the syncopation came in, then it was just off to the races. Yeah.
And Kraftwerk, I never considered EDM. I mean, the closest thing I could ever, and just off of that, and you're probably, you know a lot more about this than I do, but I'm thinking Tour de France.
Yeah.
Was their best entry into it, and it's not even that strong of an entry when it comes to dance music. It's a cool song.
Right.
But it's not competing well with the other stuff that was happening around it. But they were a huge influence on it. I mean, Giorgio, he was recording in Germany. He's an Austrian guy. So they're from the same schools. They all knew each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And who else was there? Was it Telex? They were they in with that?
Yeah.
Jay's guy, Jan Hammer.
Yep.
He was involved with those guys. He was a programming on the board for all that stuff.
Yeah.
Harold Flattermeyer, he was involved with all that stuff too, I think.
Yeah.
Back then. Who did
there was
stuff
a lot of
later
guys. There was a lot of guys right around that same time.
It's all related. But yeah, that changed it.
Yeah.
You had disco, and then you had your energy music of the 80s, and even your industrial stuff. And I mean, everything had you could easily dance to it 4/4 after that track. So I was going to talk about Eminem, but I thought, I don't know enough about Eminem. But I think he really did change things. I think he really did change things and got respect and did something that nobody else had done before.
That's a whole different show.
But he's just being himself, though. He's not trying to be anybody. He's just, when he does his rap, sounds like him and his speaking voice. He's prolific as hell. He's a great writer, and all the people who would consider themselves, or anybody who would be considered a great rapper, gives him reverence. So, but I didn't go there because I don't know enough about it. So let somebody else get that one. I went Georgia Moroder instead.
That's a great one.
Good pick. Yeah, everyone had great picks. I thought that was everyone hit just a different facet of how music changed and just continues to evolve. But nothing within the last 10 years or anything that we picked. Everything was a little bit further.
I was going to say nothing in the last 20.
Nothing monumental.
That's another show.
Has
We got
happened.
slim pickings these days.
Well, that's what happens when you take the money out of music.
Yeah.
You take the money out of it.
Yeah.
You get what's left over. You know, it's all real interesting documentary on when music became free or something like that. It's on Paramount Plus, I think.
Yeah.
And it was about people who were taking all these records, even in the late 90s, and making the invention of MP3 and getting them out there and downloading them, and how there was a competition between hacker groups to throw the stuff out there was pretty interesting. And they couldn't get the industry could not figure out what to do about it. And here we are. Here we are. They were unwilling to change. And,
they wouldn't change, and they got bitten for it.
Yeah, they had to think fast and do something. They didn't do that. So
nope, they could have made it work for them, and they completely just said, we're bigger than that.
Yeah,
nope.
It's just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again, and then wonder why it's not working anymore.
Yeah,
right.
But you know what? We can all be really happy. I think everybody in this room can be grateful that we've been alive during some of the most interesting things that have ever happened in the art of popular music. We've witnessed it. We've seen it.
That's for sure.
In my lifetime, I saw the entire career of Prince.
Yes.
In my lifetime.
Yes.
In most of my lifetime, I saw most of the career of Michael Jackson. I might have missed some of that early stuff. Jay saw it.
Yeah.
I
remember Jackson 5 when he was a little kid being on different shows.
Right. I was alive,
music
but I
was
wasn't
more
witnessing.
valuable then. Music was a thing.
Yeah,
the
there was
first
money
time I saw
involved.
Kiss, they were on the Michael Douglas show.
Oh wow!
You know,
They scared some audience members.
Oh yeah, but like that's how you got like, we could do a whole show some night on like Burt Sugarman's Midnight Special on Friday and Don Kirshner's rock concert on Saturday.
Everybody's got to do their homework for that.
You got to see actual acts playing live, and it was mind blowing because it would be the acts of the day and then throwback acts and then somebody on the fringe, and obviously, they were angled at album release and record labels and all that, but it gave you, this is way, way, way pre-MTV. Mm-hmm. By the way, for those of you that didn't know it, I believe this year MTV is turning 43.
Yeah, we can thank him for 14 years of great music.
We can thank him for 14 years of great music. Exactly.
Yeah. Their videos kill the radio stars.
I hope you all enjoyed the show tonight, though. I hope you guys had fun.
And if you did enjoy it, it was brought to us by who, Brian?
DJ Event Planner. Check them out in the description of this video, as well as our other sponsors. Thank you, kind sponsors. And we'll see you guys. Well, I don't know. We'll see you whenever John uploads these. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Happy